too late for that. Go home.
The notification chimed on my phone at exactly 11:47 p.m. How are you? Not feeling lonely? Vera's text glowed on my screen like a neon sign advertising her guilt. I stared at those 8 words from my wife of 14 years, sitting in our kitchen while she was supposedly at a luxury hotel for work. The irony tasted bitter as week-old coffee. Not as lonely as your hotel bed, I bet, I thought, setting the phone down on our granite countertop. My name is Grant Solon. I'm 41, a financial consultant who specializes in helping people manage their assets and plan for their future. The cruel joke wasn't lost on me. I'd spent years helping others secure their financial lives while my own marriage crumbled like a house built on sand. Vera Halden, she kept her maiden name for professional reasons, was 39 and one of Milwaukee's top luxury real estate brokers. Beautiful, ambitious, and as I'd recently discovered, an excellent liar. She had this way of tilting her head when she spoke to clients, her auburn hair catching the light just right, making million-dollar properties seem like bargains. That same charm had worked on me for over a decade. The signs had been there for months. Late nights became later, work trips multiplied. Her phone, once carelessly left around the house, now lived permanently in her purse or pocket. She'd started wearing perfume to networking events and buying lingerie that never made appearances at home. But it was the accidental butt dial 3 weeks ago that opened my eyes completely. I'd been reviewing client portfolios when my phone rang. Vera's name appeared on the screen, but instead of her voice, I heard background chatter and Rita Kells, her best friend since college. So how was the weekend getaway with Finn? Rita's voice came through clearly. Amazing, Vera replied, and I could hear the smile in her voice. Grant thinks I was at that conference in Chicago, but Finn rented this incredible cabin by the lake. The man knows how to treat a woman, unlike my boring husband with his spreadsheets and early bedtimes, Rita laughed. Does Grant suspect anything? Please. He's so wrapped up in his financial planning world, he wouldn't notice if I moved out. Besides, Finn's everything Grant isn't. Successful, exciting, and let's just say he knows how to keep a woman satisfied. They both laughed, and I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not heartbreak. That would come later. This was something else. Calculation, planning, the same methodical thinking I used to restructure failing portfolios. I'd hung up and immediately called my younger brother Julian. At 36, he was an ex-cop turned private security consultant. Where I dealt in numbers and projections, Julian dealt in facts and evidence. I need your help, I'd told him that night over beer at his apartment. What kind of help? Julian had asked, his sharp blue eyes studying my face. The kind that involves finding out exactly what my wife has been doing with Finn Harlow. Finn Harlow, even his name sounded pretentious. He was 44, CEO of a mid-sized tech company, and everything Vera apparently wanted in a man. Tall, silver-haired, drove a Tesla, and owned a penthouse downtown. He was also married to Patricia Harlow, a pediatric surgeon who worked 60-hour weeks saving children's lives while her husband apparently spent his free time destroying marriages. Julian had been thorough. Within a week, he'd uncovered Vera's secret social media accounts, a private email address, and a trail of credit card receipts that painted a clear picture. Hotel rooms, expensive dinners, weekend trips, all carefully hidden from our joint accounts, but sloppy enough that a determined ex-cop could piece it together. The evidence sat in a folder on my desk upstairs. Photos, receipts, text message screensheets, and a detailed timeline going back 8 months. 8 months of lies, deception, and humiliation. But tonight felt different. Tonight, Vera had made the mistake of reaching out while she was with him, probably lying naked in some overpriced hotel suite, asking if I was lonely. I picked up my phone and typed a response. Miss you too. See you soon. Then I called Marlow Trasker, my old college friend who'd become one of Milwaukee's most ruthless lawyers. Marlow specialized in what he called creative legal solutions, finding ways to solve problems that traditional law couldn't touch. Grant, it's midnight, Marlow's gravelly voice answered. I need to discuss asset protection, I said, and I need to discuss it now. Your assets or someone else's? Both. There was a pause. I'll be right over. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. While I waited, I walked through our house, the house I'd bought, furnished, and maintained while Vera built her career. Every piece of furniture, every decoration, every luxury item told a story of my investment in our life together. The Egyptian cotton sheets she insisted on, the Italian leather sofa that cost more than most people's cars, the professional-grade kitchen appliances she used maybe twice a year. Tomorrow, I decided, Vera was going to learn what it felt like to have her life restructured. And unlike the gentle financial planning I did for clients, this restructuring was going to be comprehensive, immediate, and absolutely devastating. My phone buzzed with another text from Vera. "Love you, honey. Sleep well." I smiled for the first time in months. Sleep well, indeed. Marlow arrived 20 minutes later, looking like he'd stepped out of a film noir movie despite being roused from bed. At 52, he maintained the sharp-dressed appearance that made him legendary in Milwaukee's legal circles. His silver hair was perfectly combed, his suit wrinkle-free, and his briefcase probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. "Show me what you have," he said, settling into my living room chair with a cup of coffee. I handed him Julian's folder. Marlow reviewed each document with the methodical precision of a surgeon, occasionally making notes in his leather portfolio. After 30 minutes, he looked up. "This is comprehensive," he said. "Your wife has been careless, and her boyfriend has been even more careless. The question is, what do you want to accomplish?" "I want her to understand consequences," I replied. "She spent months making me look like a fool. I want that reversed." "Divorce?" "Eventually. But first, I want her to experience what it feels like when your life gets restructured without your consent." Marlow smiled. Not a pleasant expression. "I like the way you think. Here's what we're going to do." The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Vera had made 3 critical mistakes. She'd used her real name on hotel registrations, she'd been photographed with Finn at public events, and she'd been sloppy with her digital security. All of this gave us perfectly legal avenues for what Marlow called reputation management. "The beauty of modern society," Marlow explained, "is that social destruction can be accomplished entirely within legal boundaries. No laws broken, no harassment, just strategic information distribution." We worked until 3 a.m., mapping out a timeline that would unfold over the next 2 weeks. By the time Marlow left, I felt more energized than I had in months. The next morning, I started with something simple. Vera's designer handbags, shoes, and jewelry, items worth approximately $15,000, were carefully packed and shipped via overnight delivery to Finn's penthouse. The delivery was scheduled for 10 a.m., when I knew from Julian's surveillance that Finn typically held his Monday morning staff meetings. I included a note. "Finn, since Vera spends so much time at your place, I thought she should have her things there. Take good care of them. Grant." While the delivery truck made its way across town, I prepared Phase 2. Using only publicly available information and photos from social media, I created a simple video montage. Vera and Finn entering the Pfister Hotel. Vera and Finn at a charity gala where spouses weren't invited. Vera and Finn having brunch at a restaurant 60 miles from Milwaukee on a day she'd told me she was visiting her sister. The video was tasteful, set to classical music, with timestamps and location data clearly visible. No commentary needed. The evidence spoke for itself. I sent the video to 3 carefully selected recipients: Rita Kells, Vera's boss at Prestige Properties, and Vera's mother, Margaret. Then I waited. My phone started ringing at 10:47 a.m. Vera's name appeared on the screen, but I let it go to voicemail. Then again at 10:52 and 10:58. By noon, she'd called 14 times and sent 23 increasingly frantic text messages. "Grant, we need to talk. This is not what it looks like. Someone is trying to destroy our marriage. Please call me back. Grant, I'm coming home." That last message made me smile. I texted back, "Take your time. I'm not going anywhere." At 1:30 p.m., Julian called. "The delivery was made," he reported. Building security cameras caught everything. Finn signed for the packages personally, right in front of his assistant and 2 other employees. He looked confused as hell. "Perfect. What about the video?" Rita called Vera within an hour. I could hear the shouting from across the street. Vera's boss requested a meeting for tomorrow morning. And Margaret? She's been calling Vera nonstop. I felt a warm satisfaction spreading through my chest. For months, Vera had controlled the narrative of our marriage. She was the successful career woman married to the boring financial planner. She worked hard, traveled for business, and deserved her independence. Meanwhile, I was the unexciting husband who didn't appreciate her ambition. Today, that narrative began to change. At 4 p.m., Vera's counterattack began. My email inbox flooded with notifications. Someone had attempted to access my business accounts, my social media profiles, and even my online banking. All attempts failed because Julian had helped me upgrade my digital security weeks ago. Then came the fake emails. Messages sent from a spoofed account to my business contacts, claiming I was having a mental health crisis, and making false accusations against my wife due to paranoid delusions. I'd anticipated this. 2 hours earlier, I'd sent a message to all my professional contacts. I'm currently dealing with some personal issues involving identity theft and spoofed emails. If you receive any unusual messages claiming to be from me, please verify by calling my office directly. By evening, Vera's digital assault had backfired completely. Instead of damaging my reputation, it had created a paper trail of harassment that Marlow assured me would be useful later. At 8 p.m., Rita called me directly. "Grant, it's Rita. We need to talk." "Hello, Rita. How can I help you?" "Look, I know what you think you saw in that video, but—" "Rita," I interrupted, "I didn't think I saw anything. I know exactly what I saw. The question is, do you want to keep defending someone who's been lying to both of us?" There was a long pause. "What do you mean?" "I mean, Finn Harlow has been seeing other women besides Vera. 3 others, to be specific. I have photos, receipts, and hotel records. Vera thinks she's special, but she's just another entry in his calendar." It wasn't entirely true. Julian had only confirmed 1 other woman, but Rita didn't need to know that. "You're lying," Rita said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Rita, you've been Vera's friend for 20 years. Has she ever lied to you before this?" Another pause. Longer this time. "I'll send you the information tomorrow," I continued. "Then you can decide who's telling the truth." After I hung up, I poured myself a glass of wine and reviewed the day's progress. Vera's belongings were now in Finn's possession, creating an awkward situation he'd have to explain to his wife. The video had reached key people in Vera's social and professional circles. Her attempts to retaliate had failed and created evidence of harassment. Most importantly, I'd planted doubt in Rita's mind. Rita was Milwaukee's unofficial gossip central, a woman who knew everyone and told everyone else everything. If Rita turned against Vera, the social destruction would be swift and comprehensive. My phone buzzed with another message from Vera. "I'm driving home tonight. We're going to fix this." I replied, "Looking forward to it." But Vera wouldn't be coming home to the same man she'd left. That man had been naive, trusting, and willing to overlook obvious signs of betrayal. The man waiting for her was someone else entirely. Someone who'd learned that sometimes the best defense was a perfectly executed offense. Vera didn't come home that night. At 11 p.m., I received a text. "Staying at Rita's. We'll talk tomorrow." I knew she was lying. Julian's surveillance confirmed she was still at the downtown hotel with Finn. But the lie itself was useful information. The next morning, I implemented Phase 3 of what I'd started calling Operation Collapse. At 8 a.m., I walked into the offices of Prestige Properties, where Vera had worked for 6 years. The receptionist, a young woman named Jessica, greeted me with the usual professional smile. "Mr. Solon, here to see Vera. She's not in yet." "Actually, I'm here to see David Richardson," I said, referring to Vera's boss and the company's managing partner. David was a thin, nervous man in his 50s who'd built Prestige Properties from nothing into Milwaukee's premier luxury real estate firm. He was also obsessively concerned with the company's reputation, a trait that made him perfect for my purposes. "Grant," David said, shaking my hand in his corner office, "what brings you here?" "I need to discuss a potential conflict of interest involving Vera," I said, placing a manila folder on his desk. David's expression shifted from friendly to concerned as he opened the folder. Inside were copies of hotel receipts, restaurant bills, and travel records, all showing Vera's relationship with Finn Harlow. "I don't understand," David said. "What does this have to do with the company?" "Finn Harlow's company, TechFlow Solutions, has been looking for new office space," I explained. Vera has been the primary agent showing him properties. "Given their personal relationship, I thought you should be aware of the potential ethical issues." David's face went pale. "Are you saying Vera has been—" "I'm saying Vera has been in a personal relationship with a major client for 8 months, and she hasn't disclosed this relationship to the company. Given the commissions involved, I believe the Harlow deal is worth approximately $40,000 to Prestige. This creates significant liability issues." David spent the next 20 minutes reviewing the documents. As a real estate broker, he understood exactly what this meant: potential lawsuits, licensing board complaints, and reputation damage that could destroy his business. "What do you want me to do?" he asked finally. "I want you to protect your company," I replied. "How you do that is your decision." I left David's office knowing that Vera's professional life was about to become very complicated. Real estate is built on trust and reputation, 2 things that become fragile when personal relationships intersect with business dealings. My next stop was TechFlow Solutions. Finn's company occupied 3 floors of a glass tower downtown. The lobby was all chrome and leather, designed to impress visitors with the company's success. I asked to speak with Patricia Harlow. "Mrs. Harlow doesn't work here," the receptionist said. "I know, but she's here today for the company's board meeting, isn't she?" The receptionist looked confused. Could you tell her that Grant Solon is here with information about her husband's business activities?" 10 minutes later, Patricia Harlow emerged from the elevator. At 42, she was an elegant woman with prematurely gray hair and the confident bearing of someone who saved children's lives for a living. She was also, according to Julian's research, completely unaware of her husband's extracurricular activities. "Mr. Solon, I'm not sure why you wanted to see me." "Dr. Harlow, I have information about your husband that I believe you should see before the board meeting begins." Her expression hardened. "What kind of information?" I handed her a sealed envelope. "The kind that might affect his position with the company." Patricia opened the envelope and reviewed the contents: photos of Finn and Vera, hotel receipts, and a timeline of their relationship. Her face remained professionally composed, but I could see her hands trembling slightly. "Why are you showing me this?" she asked. "Because you deserve to know the truth, and because your husband's poor judgment affects more than just his marriage." Patricia looked toward the elevator, where I could see Finn emerging with 2 other men in expensive suits, board members most likely. "Excuse me," she said, walking toward her husband. I didn't stay to watch the confrontation, but Julian's contact in building security later described it as spectacular. Finn's explanation to his wife and board members about why his business partner's wife was sending him packages of women's clothing was apparently less than convincing. By noon, Vera's professional and personal worlds were collapsing simultaneously. David Richardson had suspended her pending an internal investigation. Finn was dealing with a furious wife and suspicious board members. And Rita, after receiving the additional information I'd promised, had begun spreading word through Milwaukee's social circles that Vera was not who we thought she was. But I wasn't finished. At 2 p.m., I drove to Finn's building with Julian and a rental truck. In the truck were 47 boxes of rotting fish from a seafood distributor that owed Julian a favor, along with several gallons of a substance that smelled like a combination of sewage and rotting eggs. Finn's Tesla was parked in his reserved spot in the underground garage. The car was his pride and joy, a symbol of his success and environmental consciousness. It was also about to become a symbol of something else entirely. Julian kept watch while I emptied the boxes into Finn's car through the sunroof, which he'd left open despite the parking garage's questionable security. The smell was overwhelming, but the satisfaction was worth the discomfort. On the windshield, I placed a note. "Finn, this is what your character smells like. A concerned citizen." We were back on the street within 15 minutes. Julian's security cameras would later capture Finn's reaction when he discovered his car, along with the reactions of approximately 30 other people in the garage. The video, uploaded anonymously to social media, would receive over 50,000 views within 24 hours. At 6 p.m., my phone rang. Vera's name appeared on the screen. "Grant, what have you done?" Her voice was shaking with rage and panic. "I've been managing some assets," I replied calmly. "Protecting my interests." "David suspended me. Finn's wife is filing for divorce. Rita won't return my calls." "That sounds like a series of consequences," I said. "Perhaps you should have considered them earlier." "This is insane. You're destroying my life." "I'm not destroying anything, Vera. I'm simply making sure everyone has accurate information about your character and judgment." "I'm coming home. We're going to settle this." "I'll be here," I said, and hung up. But I wouldn't be waiting passively. Julian was already at the house, installing additional security cameras and preparing for what we both knew would be Vera's final, desperate attempt to regain control. Outside, storm clouds were gathering over Milwaukee. The weather forecast called for thunderstorms and high winds, perfect conditions for the confrontation that would end our marriage once and for all. The storm hit Milwaukee at 9 p.m. with the fury of nature unleashed. Thunder shook the windows of our house, while lightning illuminated the suburban street in stark, dramatic flashes. It was, I reflected, perfect weather for what was about to unfold. Julian had spent the afternoon turning our home into a fortress of documentation. Security cameras covered every angle of the property. Recording equipment was strategically placed throughout the house. Our neighbors had been discreetly informed that there might be some domestic disturbance, and that any footage they captured would be appreciated. "She's going to come in hot," Julian warned, checking the camera feeds on his laptop. "Desperate people make stupid choices." "Good," I replied. "Stupid choices create evidence." At 10:47 p.m., headlights swept across our front yard. But it wasn't just Vera's BMW. She'd brought reinforcements. Rita's SUV pulled up behind her, followed by a third vehicle I didn't recognize. Through the window, I watched Vera emerge from her car like a woman possessed. Her usually perfect hair was disheveled, her designer clothes wrinkled and her movements sharp with barely controlled rage. Rita followed more cautiously, clearly uncomfortable with whatever plan Vera had concocted. The third car disgorged a large man in a security uniform, someone Vera had apparently hired for muscle. This was an interesting development that would work perfectly in my favor. The doorbell rang insistently, followed immediately by aggressive pounding. "Grant, open this door right now." Vera's voice carried clearly through the storm. I activated the home security system's intercom. "Hello, Vera. I see you brought friends." "Let me in. This is my house, too." "Actually, it's not," I replied calmly. "The house is in my name only, purchased before our marriage. You're trespassing." More pounding, now joined by Rita's voice. "Grant, be reasonable. Just let us talk." "We can talk right here," I said. "The whole neighborhood can hear us perfectly." And they could. Lights were coming on in houses up and down the street. Mrs. Patterson from next door was standing on her porch with her phone out, clearly recording. The Johnsons across the street had their front door open, watching the drama unfold. "I want my things," Vera shouted. "I want access to our accounts. I want my life back." "Your things are at Finn's place, remember? I delivered them personally. As for our accounts, I've protected them from unauthorized access, which includes access by people who've been stealing from them for 8 months." "I never stole anything." Julian appeared beside me, carrying a folder thick with documents. "Should I read the hotel receipts out loud?" he called through the intercom. "I have them organized by date and location." The security guard stepped forward, apparently ready to earn his fee. "Ma'am, do you want me to handle this?" This was the moment I'd been waiting for. "Julian, are you getting this?" Every word, every action, multiple angles. I opened the front door, standing in the doorway with Julian beside me. The security cameras captured everything as the hired muscle approached our porch. "Sir, you need to let the lady into her house," the guard said, his hand resting on what looked like a taser. "Officer," I replied calmly, "this lady is trespassing on my property with a hired thug, demanding access to accounts she's been defrauding, after spending 8 months in an adulterous relationship that she's hidden from her employer, her friends, and her family. Which part of this situation suggests I should comply with her demands?" The guard hesitated. In the background, I could see more neighbors gathering, phones out, recording everything. Someone had called the police. I could hear sirens in the distance. Vera pushed past the guard. "Grant, stop this. You're humiliating me." "I'm not humiliating you, Vera. You're humiliating yourself. I'm simply providing context." "What do you want?" she screamed. "What will it take to end this?" "I want you to understand consequences," I replied. "For 8 months, you made choices. You chose to lie to me, to steal from our joint accounts, to betray our marriage, and to humiliate me in front of our friends and family. Now you're experiencing what happens when someone else makes choices about your life." Rita stepped forward. "Grant, I know you're angry, but—" "Rita," I interrupted. 3 days ago you were laughing about my boring bedroom style and calling me a fool who wouldn't notice if his wife moved out. Today, you're here trying to help the woman who's been lying to you for months. Which version of Rita should I believe?" Rita's face went pale. She hadn't realized I'd heard that conversation. The police cars arrived with lights flashing, adding to the dramatic atmosphere. 2 officers approached the group on my lawn, Officer Martinez, a veteran I recognized from neighborhood watch meetings, and a younger officer whose nameplate read Thompson. "What's the situation here?" Martinez asked. "Domestic dispute," Vera said immediately. "My husband has locked me out of my own home and stolen my belongings." "That's interesting," I replied, handing Martinez a folder. "Because the property deed, mortgage documents, and insurance policies all show this house belongs to me exclusively. The stolen belongings were delivered to her boyfriend's address. Here are the delivery receipts. And the domestic dispute began when she hired security to intimidate me into giving her access to accounts she's been defrauding." Martinez reviewed the documents while Thompson questioned the security guard, who was clearly regretting his involvement in the situation. "Ma'am," Martinez said to Vera, "do you have any legal claim to this property?" "We're married. I live here." "But you don't live here," I pointed out. "You've been living at hotels with Finn Harlow for the past 8 months. Your mail has been forwarded to a P.O. box. You haven't contributed to the mortgage, utilities, or maintenance. You've essentially abandoned the residence." Vera's face contorted with rage. "You bastard! You planned this." "I planned to protect myself from someone who was stealing from me and lying to me," I replied. "If that feels like persecution, perhaps you should examine your own actions." The storm was intensifying, rain beginning to fall in heavy drops. The crowd of neighbors was growing, and I could see phones recording from multiple angles. This confrontation was being documented from every possible perspective. "Here's what's going to happen," Martinez announced. Mr. Solon, this is your property, and you have the right to control access. Mrs. Halden, you'll need to leave the premises. If you have belongings here, we can arrange a supervised visit during daylight hours. I don't have belongings here, Vera said bitterly. He shipped them all to my boyfriend's apartment. Thompson looked confused. You have a boyfriend? It's complicated, Rita said quickly. It's really not, I replied. It's adultery with documentation. As the police prepared to escort Vera's group away from the property, her phone began buzzing incessantly. She looked at the screen and her face went white. What now? Rita asked. Vera showed her the phone. Even from my distance, I could see the notifications flooding her screen, social media alerts, news updates, and what looked like a cascade of messages. The video, Vera whispered. What video? Rita demanded. I smiled. The video of Finn's car discovery went viral this afternoon. Someone linked it to the hotel footage and the charity gala photos. Milwaukee's social media is having quite a conversation about marriage, trust, and consequences. Vera stared at her phone as the notifications continued. Her professional reputation was destroyed. Her social circle had abandoned her. Her lover was dealing with his own scandal. And now, her final attempt to regain control had been documented and would soon join the viral conversation about her choices. You've destroyed everything, she said, her voice hollow. I've revealed everything, I corrected. There's a difference. As Martinez escorted Vera toward her car, she turned back one final time. This isn't over, Grant. Yes, it is, I replied. It's been over for months. You're just now realizing it. The police cars pulled away, followed by Rita's SUV and the security guard's vehicle. Vera's BMW was the last to leave, disappearing into the storm like a retreating army. Julian and I stood on the porch, watching the neighbors gradually return to their houses. The storm was reaching its peak, but inside our fortress, everything was calm and documented. Phase 4 complete, Julian said, reviewing the camera footage. Almost, I replied. There's one more delivery to make. The next morning dawned clear and cold, the storm having washed Milwaukee clean. I stood in my kitchen, drinking coffee and reviewing the overnight developments. The viral video of Finn's car had been picked up by local news stations. Vera's professional suspension had leaked to the real estate industry blogs. And most satisfying of all, Rita had begun distancing herself publicly from Vera, posting social media messages about the importance of honesty and friendship. But the masterpiece was yet to come. At 9 a.m., I met with Marlow at his downtown office. His corner suite overlooked the lake, and on a clear day like this, you could see the expensive neighborhoods where Vera had sold her luxury properties. The final phase is elegant, Marlow said, reviewing our plans. Completely legal, thoroughly documented, and absolutely devastating. How long do we have before she tries to stop it? She can't stop it. Everything we're doing is within your legal rights, as the injured party. By the time she understands what's happening, it'll be over. At 10 a.m., a convoy of moving trucks arrived at Vera's luxury apartment building downtown. The apartment, which I'd discovered she'd been renting secretly for 6 months, was in one of Milwaukee's most prestigious addresses, the kind of place where appearances mattered and scandals spread quickly. Julian coordinated the operation while I watched from across the street. The movers, hired through a legitimate company, began removing everything from Vera's apartment: furniture, clothes, personal items, artwork, and electronics. Every item was carefully photographed, cataloged, and loaded into trucks. But these weren't ordinary moving trucks. Each vehicle carried large banners reading Relationship Consequences Moving Service and Specializing in Adultery Relocations. The banners were Julian's idea, technically advertising for a fictional company, but perfectly legal. The apartment building's residents began gathering in the lobby, watching through the glass windows as Vera's life was systematically removed from the building. Someone started live streaming the event, and within an hour, Vera Moving Day was trending on local social media. Each box and piece of furniture was tagged with a laminated card explaining its significance. Designer handbag purchased with joint account funds during secret weekend with boyfriend. Lingerie never worn at home. Laptop containing 8 months of deceptive communications. The movers worked with professional efficiency, treating each item with exaggerated care while clearly enjoying their role in the performance. They'd been briefed on the situation and were being paid premium rates for their participation in what they understood to be illegal and justified public shaming. At 11:30 a.m., Vera arrived. She must have received calls from other residents because she came running from her BMW, still in yesterday's wrinkled clothes, looking like someone who'd spent the night in her car. "Stop!" she screamed at the movers. "You can't do this." The head mover, a burly man named Pete, handed her an official-looking document. Ma'am, we have legal authorization from the account holder who's been paying for this apartment. All rent and utilities have been in his name. Vera's face went white as she read the document. In her haste to maintain her secret apartment, she'd allowed me to handle all the financial arrangements. Technically, I was the legal tenant, and she was merely an authorized occupant. "Where are you taking my things?" she demanded. Pete consulted his clipboard. "Delivery address is 1247 Harbor View Drive, apartment 3204. That's the Harlow residence, ma'am." A crowd was gathering on the sidewalk. Residents from neighboring buildings, people walking their dogs, and curious passers-by drawn by the unusual spectacle. Someone had contacted local news stations, and I could see a television van approaching from the north. Vera called Finn, her voice carrying clearly in the cold air. "Finn, they're delivering all my stuff to your place? What do you mean you can't accept it? What do you mean Patricia changed the locks?" The conversation continued for several minutes, with Vera's voice becoming increasingly desperate. Finn, it appeared, was no longer available to help with her housing crisis. Rita arrived at noon, apparently summoned by Vera's frantic calls, but instead of offering support, Rita kept her distance, clearly uncomfortable being associated with the public spectacle. "Rita, help me stop this," Vera pleaded. "I can't," Rita replied. "Everyone's talking about this online. My husband says I need to stay away from the drama." "You're my best friend." "I was your best friend when I thought you were honest with me." The news crew arrived as the movers were loading the final items. A reporter I recognized from the morning show approached with her cameraman, clearly excited about the human interest story developing in front of them. "This is Janet Morrison, Channel 6 News, reporting from downtown Milwaukee where a very public relationship dispute is unfolding. We're here with... Sir, could you tell us your name?" The reporter had approached me, recognizing that I was somehow central to the situation. "Grant Solon," I replied calmly. "I'm handling some asset redistribution. Can you explain what's happening here?" "My wife has been living a double life for 8 months," I said, speaking clearly for the camera. "She's been maintaining a secret apartment, conducting an extramarital relationship, and using our joint finances to fund her deception. Today, I'm simply ensuring that her belongings are relocated to reflect her actual living situation." "And where is that?" "With her boyfriend, Finn Harlow, although I understand he may not be available to receive the delivery." The reporter turned to Vera, who was standing beside the now empty moving trucks, surrounded by boxes and furniture on the sidewalk. "Ma'am, would you like to respond?" Vera looked at the camera, then at the crowd, then at the boxes containing her entire life scattered on the pavement. "This is harassment," she said weakly. "Actually," I interjected, "this is consequences. For 8 months, my wife made choices that affected both our lives. Today, she's learning what it feels like when someone else makes choices that affect her life." The reporter was clearly enjoying the story. "So, this is revenge?" "This is education," I replied. "Some people need to learn lessons publicly because they refuse to learn them privately." As the news crew conducted interviews with bystanders, Vera made one final attempt to salvage the situation. She called a storage company, trying to arrange immediate pickup of her belongings. But storage companies, she discovered, don't typically work on emergency schedules, and the few that do charge premium rates that her suddenly limited finances couldn't cover. By 2 p.m., Vera was sitting on her designer sofa in the middle of the sidewalk, surrounded by the remnants of her secret life, while strangers took photos and videos that would be shared across social media for weeks to come. The final humiliation came when a parking enforcement officer arrived and informed her that she couldn't leave her belongings on the public sidewalk. City ordinances required her to move everything within 2 hours or face fines and confiscation. "Where am I supposed to take it?" Vera asked desperately. The officer shrugged. "That's not the city's problem, ma'am." As I walked away from the scene, I felt a deep satisfaction settling in my chest. For 8 months, Vera had controlled the narrative of our relationship. She was the successful professional, I was the boring husband. She deserved excitement, I deserved whatever scraps of attention she chose to give me. Today, that narrative had been permanently rewritten. Everyone who mattered in our social and professional circles now understood exactly who Vera Halden was and what she was capable of. Her reputation was destroyed, her career was over, and her lover had abandoned her to save himself. But most importantly, she finally understood what it felt like to have your life restructured by someone else's choices. My phone buzzed with a text from Julian. "It's done. Every second documented. The internet is going to remember this for a long time." I replied, "Good. Some lessons need to be permanent." As I drove home through the clean, cold streets of Milwaukee, I reflected on the past 2 weeks. I'd started as the victim of betrayal and deception. I was ending as the architect of justice. Vera would recover eventually. She'd find a new job, probably in a different city. She'd rebuild her social circle with people who didn't know her history. She might even find another relationship. But she'd never again underestimate the consequences of betrayal. And she'd never again assume that her victims would suffer in silence. The story was over. The lesson was permanent. And for the first time in 8 months, I was looking forward to tomorrow.